This is Dayon Paul again with Rockstars of Maya, where you become the rock stars of Maya. So this is part two. So far, we've created a monumental task of creating a cube. So there's our cube, and in case you forgot how we made it, we used the create menu. But let's forget about the cube for now. We're going to look at some of the selection or transformation tools. So if you look on the left here, you'll see our tools. So we have a selection, a transform, rotate, and scale. So what we want to do is really start using these tools to do our transformations, but we don't necessarily want to have to always go back and click on these different things here. Now you notice nothing's happening here. I don't see any way to use the tool because I don't have anything selected here at all. So let's zap away the cube because let's take a look at something else. So I'm going to go ahead and create a NURB sphere, for example. So let's go ahead and create a NURB sphere. So there's my NURB sphere. It's in the center of the screen there. And so to select it, when I create it, it's automatically selected. Now if I click off of it, it's no longer selected. So you want to use, the quick keys are set up so that you use the QWERTY on your QWERTY keyboard. So you have Q, W, E, R, T. So let's just, and Y. Well, we're just going to use the Q, W, E, R for now. So Q to select. So if I hit the Q button, notice how it's going to the selection marquee, and then I can click on the object or click off of it. So now I was already in selection mode, but now once I have an object selected, I can do some transformations on that object. So you'll notice we have like our X, Y, Z widget down here, and that refers to our transformations in 3D space. So, if we go to all of a sudden hit W, you'll see now you have that you have this little widget that shows your transformation. So the transformations work in X, Y, and Z. So notice if I just kind of grab it and move it, I can move it around. But I really don't know what particular plane I am moving these on. So in relationship to the 3D space, when I just drag it around, I'm moving it on two axes, but I'm not always sure which exactly those two axes are. They're going to be related to the camera plane. So whatever I'm looking at, they're related to the camera plane. But if you want to move things more precisely, you're going to use those little widget tools. So as I clicked off, I could still select, even though I'm in transform mode, I can go back and click on this and move it specifically in one direction. So X, X is the red. So you can see there's our X axis. So I just turned the camera a little bit so I can see that widget a little bit better. So the X axis is usually moving left to right if your camera is facing the object. And if you hit the Y axis, that's moving up and down. So this is your up and down. And then when you click the Z axis, it's moving closer or further away from you. And depending on where your camera is, right? If my camera is facing around the back, I might be moving it quite a different direction than what I'm expecting. But this is sort of related to your other views. So you notice I hit my space bar and I'm back to my 4 views, but I want to be in this view for now because I'm really looking at it in a 3D space. So I can kind of move this around using that little widget and moving it on all 3 axes there. So the next thing we want to do is to do a rotation. So if I hit my E key, we now can rotate it on the different axes. So we have the green for the Y axis, the blue for the Z axis, and then the red for the X axis. So we can do all those same transformations in rotation. We can rotate along those axes as well. And then the last thing we can do is, and we're rotating a sphere, so it really won't really look any different when it's not rotated. If I had applied like a beach ball pattern on there or something, you would see a difference, but the only way I can really see any rotations is if it's selected and I can see my spans on my sphere there. And then the last key command would be the R. So we have Q to select, W to transform, E to rotate, and then R to scale. So those are all the different transform tools that you can use. So you notice if I click right in the middle, I'm doing a uniform scale. So in this case, with the other transform tools, it's much easier to click on an axis, but with this particular tool with the scaling, it's easier if you scale from the center because you're always getting a uniform scale. Now, in case you want to squash it, you can squash the shape, right? So I can squash it down the X, I could squash it down the Z, I can scale it in the X, so, you know, the Y. And so I can make sort of a different type of shape there out of the sphere. And so that is all of the transform.